I want to clear up some confusion about my own diet journey and the recommendations that I am making for health. Some of you have been asking, what the heck is going on? Are you carnivore? Are you keto? Are you ketovore? Are you on carbs? Are you off carbs? Or what the heck is this primal fusion diet that you keep going on about? It's a great question because I've shared a lot about each approach, but I think my evolving journey has probably left some people confused. So today, I want to clear up exactly what I've tried, why I've made certain changes, and what I'm actually doing right now as far as my diet's concerned. Let's start from the beginning though. A while back, almost 2 years to the day, I started a carnivore diet. I fully committed. I went whole hog. I went, excuse the pun, straight in. I did very strict, super strict carnivore diet. I didn't even have any pepper. Literally beef, bacon, butter, eggs, and salt and water. That was it. I was feeling amazing, at least at first. Picture this: mental clarity, endless energy, incredible physical fitness, and I even resolved issues with my gut and skin that had been stubborn for years. I dropped extra weight, gained lean muscle, and generally felt like Superman. But around the 12-month mark, things started changing a little bit. My body seemed to be telling me that something was off. In retrospect, it may have actually been around the 6 to 9 month mark now that I think back. I noticed my hormone levels weren't quite right. Energy started to lag a little bit, and there were a few signs that I'd hit a wall and things weren't going great. This was maybe my first sign that perhaps a strict carnivore wasn't the best thing for me long term, not without some tweaks at least. After this experience, I actually decided to experiment with a few animal based tweaks. Inspired by Dr. Paul Saladino's animal based diet, I was noticing similar issues to what he had, so I thought I'd try what he did. I tried incorporating foods like honey, berries, and raw dairy into my meals. And I gotta tell you, I felt incredible. Energy was back up, lifts at the gym improved, my libido went up a lot. My overall sense of wellness returned. I felt great, but there was a catch. Over about 3 months, I put on a ton of weight, around 10 to 15 kilograms. I stupidly convinced myself it was all muscle. But the reality set in one day when I looked in the mirror. I realized I was in total denial. It wasn't all muscle. I'd gained a fair amount of fat. And this was a real eye opener. And honestly, I was pretty horrified with myself. I couldn't believe I'd let myself get that fat again. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. And as much as I wanted to keep my energy and performance up, I needed a balance that didn't lead to horrible weight gain. So I was stuck. I was at a bit of a crossroads. Total zero carb wasn't working for me, but neither was a diet with too many carbs. I'd also had problems with keto before. So what the hell was I meant to do? Well, enter my Primal Fusion diet. Throughout the time of doing the carnivore diet, even on that strict diet, I was talking to patients about it. I got quite zealous, but some patients loved it, some hated it. Many didn't either want to do a full on carnivore or they didn't want to stay carnivore. They wanted a diet plan that they could follow. They weren't happy with me just telling them, well, it's easy, just find what works for you and adapt it. They wanted an actual solid meal plan that they could read off. The number of times people were begging me for a meal plan, eventually I just came up with one, and I called it the Primal Fusion Diet. Following the logical principles of the carnivore diet with just a few small adaptations. I think it follows a fairly logical evolutionary path, and I went over this in detail in my recent episode on the optimum human diet. Make sure you check that out if you haven't already. The goal here was to take the best aspects of carnivore, but adapt them to be more sustainable and personalized for the individual patients. As a doctor, I saw firsthand how some of my patients wanted to follow carnivore, but they just couldn't. But with some slight flexibility, like the option of adding in minimal carbs or very specific low toxin plants, they felt like they could do it. It doesn't need to be an all or nothing approach. Women seem to have this issue more than men. Men seem to be quite happy to just eat meat all the time. Women wanted to typically eat a little bit more vegetables. And of course, kids also thrown into the mix. So this is how my Primal Fusion diet was born. Primal Fusion Diet is essentially a carnivore adjacent diet. 95% meat at its base, at its core, with just minimal amount of carbs, maybe some dairy, and very low toxicity plant foods like vegetables like carrot or peas, for example. Very similar to Ken Berry's proper human diet, just with a few small exceptions. I also talk about things like sleep, grounding, exercise, and sunshine, combining all of these so it's not just diet, it's a real lifestyle change. You can read more about my Primal Fusion diet in my free guide on my website, link in the episode description. Anyway, back to my personal journey. Over the last 6 months or so, I've began gradually reducing carbs again, whilst keeping my health improvements steady. I gradually reduced them because I didn't want to fall right back to where I was before with a strict carnivore diet. And honestly, I was actually in a pretty good place mentally and with my issues with food addiction and sugar addiction in the past. Believe it or not, I wasn't actually addicted to sugar this time, and the carbs were actually pretty easy to reduce. But having gone through food and carb addiction most of my life, I was really careful not to just flip backwards and forwards between zero carb and loads of carbs. As they say, slow and steady wins the race. So where am I at now? Right now, I'm basically doing carnivore. In fact, what I'm doing, many people would still call it carnivore. I follow a similar diet to people like Ken Berry, Bart Kay, even Sean Baker. I'm sure millions of others are also following exactly what I eat, but calling it carnivore. And this is where the confusion comes in. I eat meat and eggs almost exclusively, but I also eat about 10 to 20 grams of sugar a day, coming in the form typically of milk. I like raw milk, but it's very hard to get hold of here in Australia. I also occasionally add a little bump of carbs to about 50 grams maybe a day with some Greek yogurt, possibly a little bit of berries here and there. I've been doing this now for around 3 to 6 months and steadily gaining muscle and losing fat, but maintaining my energy levels, focus, mental health, and just generally feeling amazing. As of the last 6 weeks, I'm now down to about 10 grams of carbs a day, down from about the 250 grams I was eating on the animal based diet. And this is really my Primal Fusion diet. It's rooted in carnivore, but allows that little bit of flexibility, as long as you're supporting optimal health. I also supplement with about 5 milligrams of boron a day. And beyond that, I also focus on lifestyle factors, plenty of sunshine, grounding, good sleep, stress management, and some form of movement every day. I'm typically working out, though it's reasonably light, at least 5 times a week. At night, I like to swim in my pool, especially at the moment. It's 35 degrees here in Brisbane. The pool in the evening is so beautiful, being out underneath the stars. We have zero light pollution almost here in Australia. It's gorgeous. But I know this is causing confusion for people because now I'm talking about carnivore again. People are wondering, hang on, didn't you quit carnivore? Well, yes, but also no. Did I ever really quit carnivore? Some would say yes, and I kind of said yes on my channel, but some would say no. I certainly quit a strict carnivore diet, but I'm back to a carnivore adjacent diet, whatever that means. It means the carnivore principles are my foundation still, but I'm open to small beneficial tweaks. And if you look at the term carnivore, it's got so many definitions now. Is it strict zero carb like Dr. Chafee? BBBE, beef, bacon, butter, eggs? Is it just steak and butter like Steak and Butter Gal? Can you have seasonings? Can you have milk? Can you not have milk? It's ridiculous. I think this is what maybe Coach Bronson was talking about in an interview I did a while ago with him called Don't Sweat the Small Stuff. You guys can check that out on the channel. It's a great interview. I'm not here to argue, though, about strict definitions. I've done that in the past. I eat similarly now to what a lot of influencers are doing. These people are calling themselves carnivore. People like Ken Berry, Bart Kay, even Sean Baker occasionally add things outside of an animal-based diet, outside of the meat and so on. They're eating fruit and dairy occasionally. The key thing here is finding balance and finding what works for me in the long term. I'm in it for the long haul. So yes, my health journey might seem like I'm flip-flopping a little bit, but honestly, I've never really changed. Carnivore, or at least meat-based, will be and always was my foundation. It's given me phenomenal benefits that I'll never ignore, but I want to stay open-minded. So when something just feels off, I adjust. It's part of my job as a healthcare professional, as a doctor, to question things and experiment responsibly, primarily with myself. I'll never offer or advise something to my patients that I'm not willing to do myself. I know it's confusing for people, especially now because they've got wind that I'm going to be appearing on some shows soon, like Kerry from At Home Said How, and I'm going to be coming on Lily Kane's podcast as well soon, talking about the carnivore diet. So this is confusing people. Am I on it or am I off it? My experiences and thoughts on the benefits and the limitations of carnivore diet have really never changed, but I now have just more nuance in my approach. I've seen the value of a strict carnivore diet. I've also seen the value of maybe some slight carbohydrate intake. Maybe that's just for me personally. But at the end of the day, I've got to find the balance that works for me. I don't think zero carb is the best for many people. I've seen too many patients where strict zero carb was just too much and caused some problems. But a 99% carnivore diet, sure, it doesn't seem to cause any issues. That's probably the optimal balance for me. So there you have it. That's pretty much what I'm currently eating. If you want me to go into more detail about what I actually eat in a week, look, by all means, let me know in the comments. I can do that video. I apologize for some of the confusion that may have been caused by my approach. I haven't been flip-flopping. I've just been trying different things and ultimately to find what works for me. I think what works for me is about a 99% carnivore diet. Hopefully, you guys will also find what works for you. And I hope that my experience, and this is why I do what I do, that my experience helps to guide you guys out there watching this, listening to this in your journey, ultimately finding what works for you, not somebody else. I think it's really important to experiment and just find what works. I wish I'd maybe not gone the animal-based route, but I think it's really important. I often say to my patients, there's no wrong turns on the journey. The journey is what matters. We'll all get to where we want to be eventually. But if we just go straight there, we don't know if other things could be better or worse for us. My animal-based stint was a really important part of my journey because it showed me, no, I really just cannot really eat any carbs because I'm going to get fat. This was a really important thing for me to realize. The principles of the carnivore diet were great. The toxins, 100%. They also are taken out on the animal-based diet, but the problem was the carbs. So taking those out now is giving me my health back, which I'm really grateful for. So I apologize if I've waffled a little bit in this episode. I didn't really mean to. I thought it was just really important to get this out there to clear up some confusion because people are understandably, rightly so, getting a little bit confused with what I'm doing and what I'm talking about, why I'm going back to the carnivore diet. In my opinion, I never really left. I was just trying a few different things. Where I'm at now, as I've said, is about 99% carnivore, with the occasional bump of carbs. Thank you guys for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.